Hi, I want to talk to you about the conclusion to paper number 1. If we look at the rubric, we can see right away that the conclusion for this paper isn't like the typical essay that you've written in the past. Many times in courses, you're told in your conclusion to summarize what you've already said in the paper. That's really not what we want to do here on our paper. What we want to do in the conclusion for our American Studies paper is reflect on where America is today on the tension that you've discussed, compared with where America was during the period that you've examined in the paper. So, where is America today on traditional subordination of women versus ideals of equality, compared to where was America during the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries? That's the kind of question, as an example, we would be exploring. And the language here in the rubric is really clear on this, and you want to make sure you're looking at it and you have the rubric out on your desk as you're writing. Because very often I receive summary conclusions that don't meet this requirement, and for that reason seriously undermine the student's paper and grade on that paper. And when I talk about this kind of reflection, I don't mean a couple sentences. I'm looking for a big fat paragraph, and sometimes students have done more than one paragraph as they've really dug into this reflection. It's important. Why is it important? Because that's really the purpose of this class. We study the past so we better understand the present. And so when we have spent all this time analyzing the artifacts of the past and what they say, we're hoping that that gives us an insight into where we are today. Maybe it's a point of contrast, a point of difference. Maybe there are points of similarity, and maybe there's both. So with that in mind, let's take a look at Megan's sample conclusion as a way of getting our own thought process going. If you recall, Megan's paper focused on racial hierarchy and racial equality in 19th century America. Most of us are writing in our current paper about earlier periods. Notice how in the conclusion, she has a little sentence at the beginning that sort of sums up what she's been saying about the past in America in terms of racial equality and racial hierarchy. But the pivot point in the conclusion is what I've highlighted in blue when she says today. And let's try to avoid that horrible phrase nowadays. Today, in the 21st century, where is America? And you can see that she spends a lot of time and space analyzing this idea, discussing where we are today, comparing it back to where we were in the past. I actually think this conclusion could do a better job of comparing today to the past. That she does a very good job talking about where we are today in her view, but it would be cool if she could connect it more effectively back to the past she's discussed in the paper. She does that to some degree, but nowhere near as elaborately as she could. So once again, we have an example of a sample essay that's good, that documents the basic things we want to do, but can be improved upon. Remember, the sample essay isn't necessarily the gold standard. The sample essay is the vehicle we use to understand the rubric better. And in this case, Megan has basically responded to the rubric and done a very good job at looking at today, but could beef up the comparison to the past part of what should happen in her conclusion. Something for you to think about as you work on your own. Remember, don't hesitate to email me a conclusion or text me about a conclusion or call me about a conclusion if you want some advice and support. I'll see you in Blackboard. Thanks for listening.